Alright, welcome to Multi-Tech Services. IC competence in digital lifestyle. Today's we're going to consider on computer application, computer connection processes. Last time we talked about definition of computer, introduction to computer, and today we have come to how do we connect this computer to make it workable. Now this is the outline: definition of computer, desktop computer setup, identification of various connection components, desktop computer connection processes, and then the purpose of desktop computer setup. Why do we set it up? What is the purpose? Identification, those component parts that we need to see. Then we know that this is what we are using to connect a desktop computer setup. And then the desktop computer connection processes. This has to do with the processes involved in connecting a desktop computer, thereby making it workable for the user. And then the definition, of course, we need to know what it takes to connect a computer system, those things we need, the definition and all. Then we come to the definition of desktop computer setup. And by what I say there, desktop computer setup is the interconnection of computer hardware components that make up a functional, workable desktop computer system. This process entails the use of appropriate cables and other hardware components to ascertain effective connection process. Example of hardware components and cables include the keyboard, the monitor, the mouse, the CPU, the printer, the scanner, power cables, visual cables, etc. That means there are so many things needed to connect this, but these are the basic thing we need to connect a desktop computer. Now we'll talk about interconnection. Interconnection has to do with bringing the component parts together, linking them with a particular cable. So that's to say that one component part cannot work on its own except it being connected to another, and that's what makes it interconnected. And then we're talking about functional. After you must have connected this in with the appropriate cables and the other hardware components, it makes it functional so that when you boot it on, it works, and any instruction you give, it works. So that's the desktop computer setup. Let's go to identification of various connection components. Remember, I told us that before you can connect a computer system, you must know what and what you need to put in place for you to connect this. And these are what we have here. First, we have the wall sockets. We have the generator, we have the inverter, we have the UPS, we have the power cable, we have the visual cable, and the HDMI cable. Now I'm starting with the socket because for you to have an effective connection, a socket must be there where you interconnect your cable from the wall socket. Before that, you have the generator or the electricity, which put powers into the socket, and when you connect, it works. Now the inverter here is in case you do not have electricity. That means either NEPA light or generator, you can use an inverter that is being charged. And then the UPS simply means uninterrupted power supply. Now this helps even if you're connecting with generator or NEPA light. Sometimes light might go off, your inverter battery might run down, but the UPS here serves as a sustainer which can at least sustain the work for a while till it's being saved and then shut down properly. So that's the work of the UPS. And then we'll talk about the power cable. The power cable is that cable that takes power from the socket or extension into either of the CPU or the monitor. There are two power cables in order to connect a complete desktop setup. Now we have the power cable for the CPU, we have the power cable for the monitor, we have the power cable also for the UPS. And then we have what we call the visual cable. And the visual cable helps to display whatever thing that is in the system unit on the screen. And then we have the HDMI cable. In case of projection process, you want to project whatever thing you're doing onto a big screen or a larger screen, different from the one you're using, you use the HDMI cable. Now this HDMI cable helps to translate whatever thing you're doing on the system, just as I'm doing right now. It will translate it to the viewer. Now let's talk about the monitor. The monitor is a screen like a television whereby it displays whatever thing that is being run in the system. Remember, all the thing you've seen on the system, the screen, is not inside the monitor. The monitor is a a projector. So the monitor helps us to visualize whatever activity is going on in the system unit. That's the work of the monitor. And then what makes this monitor works effectively is the work of the power cable. This power cable helps to display whatever thing, it translates whatever thing going on in the system unit onto the monitor for display. And then we have the system unit, which is the central processing unit. Remember, the box you're seeing here is not the CPU. There is a case that covers the CPU. The CPU is that particular aspect of the computer system, just as I explained, the one that controls all the activity in a computer setup. And then this CPU is being powered with a power cord or the power cable that gives power into the system unit, and the system unit functions. So whatever thing you're doing in the system unit will be displayed on the monitor for you to see when you're making mistakes or when you're making progress. Then we have the keyboard. Keyboard is another hardware component that helps us to input data. When you're typing, when you're inputting numbers, you're doing a lot of things. The keyboard serves as your data processing aspect that helps you to input data into the system. And we have the mouse. The mouse helps us to navigate through from one point to another. It makes it easier for us to use the system. We have two types of mouse here. One, we have the wired mouse, and then we have the wireless mouse. They are of the same function but of different prices and different purpose. And for portability purpose, the wireless mouse is actually effective because this does not need long wire connections. You only need to connect your Bluetooth devices and put in the battery, and then your mouse is set. Now in this mouse, you don't necessarily need to connect, but all you just need to do is to place it anywhere and then be comfortable while using. So in all, you must need a wall socket, you must need a generator, you must have an inverter in case, you must have UPS, very important, you must have a power cable. I said we have three power cables. One connects the monitor, one connects the UPS, one connects also the CPU, which is the central processing unit. We have also the visual cable, and then we have the HDMI cable. We have the monitor, we have the CPU, we have the keyboard, we have the mouse. So when these components are well identified, then to set up a desktop computer system is as easy as ABC. Now let's move on to the next point we have. And the next point we have here are another of these desktop components. Now we have the printer, we have the scanner, and I swear we have a brief description of the CPU. Remember I told you that the box is just a case, and then we have a CPU functioning inside of it. Let's talk about the printer. Now we're talking about you using a keyboard to input, maybe you're typing or you're printing. Now whatever thing you arrange on the system is called a soft copy. So when you're done arranging it and you print it out, it now comes out the hard copy, which is a paper certificate or whatever. Now the printer itself is what helps us to have it in a paper form. Meanwhile, they are being processed in the system, and the printer will bring it out as a paper form. So this printer helps to bring whatever thing we designed or arranged on the system out as paper. Now this printer serves as a dual purpose. It can be used as a scanner as well. It can be used as also a printer. It can also a photocopier. So printer is another important device when it comes to setting up a complete desktop computer system. And then we have the scanner itself. The scanner, simply put, translates the hard copy into a soft copy. You have printed it from the printer, or you have misplaced or you have deleted the file from your system and you need it back as soft copy, maybe sending via email or sending to someone to WhatsApp or Zen or Telegram. All you just need to do is to take off the paper you printed and then you scan it back, so you have it as soft copy. Now let's move to this other picture out here. Now you're seeing a complete desktop computer setup and you're seeing a case. Now this case is what people mistaken to be the CPU, that's the central processing unit. It is actually not. It is a case that is covering the CPU. Without this case, the CPU might be easily damaged. Now look at this. Now in this case, you're seeing the power supply. They are linking telling us what is attached to this. In this case, you're seeing a DVD room. This is where you insert your DVD. Eventually, maybe you want to play a video or you want to burn document to CD, you use the DVD. And then we have another one called the main board. Now this main board is actually an important component of a computer system, because mostly all the information in computer system are being processed and stored there as well. Likewise, the CPU, as I said, the CPU is the brain of a computer, the central processing. Whatever action you're taking in a computer, either you're giving a computer an instruction, this CPU helps to process this, and then we have the CPU fan, we have the RAM, which is the read access memory, we have the VGA card, we have the sound card, we have the hard disk, we have the read all in one internal. The hard disk is where all this processing, all this document, your typing, your designs, all your work are being saved. So actually the hard disk is the storage of a computer system. Meanwhile, the CPU is the brain where all these functions are being carried out. So having this knowledge, you will believe that, you will agree, or you will see that identifying various components that helps in connecting the system is much more important. As time goes on, you'll see more things. Now let's move to desktop computer connection process. Remember, I told us that we're coming to connecting a computer system. It has series of processes from the socket down to the final connection. So each of these connections are moved with particular steps. So step must be followed one step after the other for you to have an effective desktop computer setup rather. Here is this. This is a picture. I'm going to explain the picture from the main supply here. Now the main supply could be one, either you're getting it from electricity, or you're getting it from generator, or you're getting it from anywhere, your source of power. Now this is the main power, and then you're seeing an inverter. In case you do not have power, the power helps you to maybe give life into your inverter, and the inverter is meant to sustain you maybe for a while. Now connecting to the inverter has a battery, so the battery as well needs to be recharged and replaced if damaged. Now let's leave these ones. Coming to the effective connection process of this desktop computer setup. Now you have your main power supply, which could be your electricity, NEPA lights, or your generator, as the case may be. Now we have the first socket. The first socket there comes with the UPS. And this first socket, you connect your UPS to the socket itself, as is being indicated here. Remember, the UPS is an uninterrupted power supply. Now this device helps to sustain light even when there is no power supply from the main supply. The UPS will sustain. So it is always advisable that whatever connection you do, the wall socket should be concerned with the UPS alone. So whatever connection you're doing apart from the printer, should be connected to the UPS. What I mean, your CPU should be connected to the UPS, your monitor connected to the UPS, and then your keyboard connected to the CPU, your mouse connected to the CPU, every other thing connected to the CPU, and then your UPS alone should be connected to the main socket. Why? Because if the main supply has issue, UPS can sustain, and if the UPS is still on, definitely your setup will be on, meaning your CPU will be on, your monitor will be on, your keyboard will be active, your mouse will be active. Then you can have time to save your work. Here we have the speaker, or eventually you're doing a tutorial like this, or you're doing an online lesson. You need a speaker that can tell you, or you can hear whatever you're learning. Now the speaker also will be connected with a USB port, connected with to the CPU, and as well connected to the power supply, so that if there is a failure in the power supply, main power supply per se, the UPS sustain whatever thing you're doing, and then your work will be easier. the printer can be connected to the main socket. Why? Because it cannot be connected to a UPS, because the power or the voltage in the printer is higher than that of the UPS. Now when you want to print your job, or you want to bring it out in a paper form, just as I described earlier, you can now on maybe your generator or whatever thing you on, and then the printer will come up. The printer is actually not the problem, but the problem here is our CPU and that of our monitor, keyboard and mouse. So when these ones are connected to the UPS, which is the uninterrupted power supply, then your work is safe. The thing is that when light goes off, because UPS cannot stay, let's say cannot stay up to an hour or per se 2 hours, what you need to do once light go off, you only need to save your work, shut down the system and off the UPS, so that you sustain the battery. Now the next thing we're going to consider again is the purpose to which you're using this desktop computer setup. Why are you setting it up? Of course, desktop computer is scattered, so why are you setting it up? This is why you're setting it up. First, you're having it as a work or business, either you're doing it online or on site. The way I'm doing right away, I'm doing a work for somebody far or outside the country. It's a work, and that kind of work is called an online work. That is the purpose. So that is why I need to set up my desktop computer, because I want to do a work for somebody and I want to be paid or get paid. Now I'll do it either I'm doing it online, and then the on-site I have a place whereby I'm doing the same work and people come to learn, people come to do services with me, do printing and a lot of things. This is why you need to set up your desktop computer for work or business purpose. Secondly, for your educational purposes. Let me start this way. The way, just as I'm doing, I'm trying to teach people that are new into the computer system what it takes to be a computer user or a computer operator. I'm educating people. That's for this purpose. And as well, I'm a student and I'm doing some researches and I'm doing some assignments. I'm also using the system in an educational way, so I can do it maybe online or on site. Online, I'm learning things from a particular agent online, and then on site I'm going to a computer center, maybe a place to learn something unique about computer or any other thing using my computer. And that is why I need to set up my desktop computer. Another one for gaming, which almost everybody use. Maybe you're playing games. Games can be played online and on site. Maybe I have my colleague with me, we play game together, and I also have games to play online. So computer desktop can also be used also in gaming system or gaming purpose. And then we have the personal use. Personal use, I might just decide to play with my system. Maybe I'm doing a design, or I'm just doing something, watching movies or a lot of things on the system. This is a personal use. I can decide to use it for any purpose. Some people using it, when we talk about work or business, some people use it illegally, but that is not where we're going to. Our concern is how to use a desktop computer appropriately, legally, to earn money. So with this, you keep in touch with us. Our next class, we are going to deep into the familiarization of desktop page in the computer setup, and by time goes on, we keep knowing how to use a computer. Remember, all these are computer appreciation. Remember, I told us that the difference between computer appreciation and computer application is that computer appreciation helps you to understand the basic thing about a computer, how a computer works, from the definition, introduction, down to the basic component part of the computer, meaning the hardware and then the software. That is the computer appreciation. And then we'll talk about the computer application. I'm trying to apply those things I've learned, using them to make meaning. So computer application is always used by a computer user, and then new users are introduced to computer appreciation, and when these are done, then the computer processes is done. So next we talk about the familiarization of the page whereby we're going to do a lot of creating folders and a lot of things to do. Thank you as you keep subscribing to our YouTube channel, Architect Services. Thank you, I remain blessed.